All right. Welcome. This is Kyle, and I'm here with Michelle. And today
Hi.
we're going to talk about our soul purpose, our soul path. So, Michelle, I don't know, just give me a little background. What kind of got you walking on this path towards discovering soul journeys, and just I don't know, a little background about your work.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. This has been a huge process for me, and I feel like the birth of the book was what I am realizing was part of helping people to align with their soul path. That
And
it's
you're
actually a template for that. Yeah.
awesome. And the book you're speaking of is becoming
Yes.
sacred space for those
Exactly.
people that are watching or listening that might not really know.
Yeah. Exactly. And that the book started to come through when I was on pilgrimage in Sedona, and that time was hugely transformative for me. And basically the structures of the meditations and working with the different archetypes, that all came through in that way, and I saw it was like a larger arc of work. And I think what brought me to this template, specifically talking about astrological soul path, is a combination of working with Chiron, which there's a chapter in my book. I have it here. I'll show you. Can I sacred space? There's a chapter in
I
my book
have
on
mine book
Chiron.
too. Oh,
Yay, thank you. And these are the two books that I used, um, talking about Chiron, that I sourced for my book, that really helped me understand life as initiation onto
mm,
soul path. And then I started to learn a little bit about the nodes, when I was working on my Jung class last semester. I did a presentation on the Red Book as Jung's spiritual emergence process. And I noticed that when that started, he had his nodal return. His lunar nodes
mm,
were aligned. So that I learned from Yesterday's Sky,
mm,
Stephen Forrest's evolutionary astrology. So I wanted to put those together. And then I said to myself, what's another aspect that really brings those components of our karmic life work and our sort of initiatory life experiences out into the world? How do we most express ourselves, or our most basically outer faces of ourselves? And that would be the midheaven. So that's like the third
mm.
component that I like to look at for that. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. What kind of stuff did you learn when doing your research for this book?
Wow.
I guess that's a kind of a big question.
Yeah, no, it's great though. Thank
But
you.
I guess in regards to like this soul path initiation.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the pillars are authenticity, empowerment, and love. So
Mm,
it's the three centers. So authenticity is really aligning with our true selves. Aligning with our authenticity means letting go of those values or beliefs or paradigms that don't align and don't connect to the way we want to live in the world.
mhm,
And empowerment versus force, which I go through in the book, which talks about how do we source ourselves sustainably? So power in a sense of being empowered to have the fuel that's necessary to do the work, and that then can be expressed from the heart and in a loving way,
mm,
um, and love in action. Um, and that, to me, those are the three main pillars. Yeah.
mm. Awesome. So cool. Um, why would anybody want to know what their soul path is?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I think a lot of people are feeling this need right now. People are feeling awakening happening. People are going through more spiritual emergence processes. Some are becoming emergencies,
Mm,
etc. And we're noticing what's happening to the ecosystems, to our economy, to political systems. There is so much going on that is crying out for evolution of consciousness and for really the new paradigm that's being birthed through us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
So as a midwife of that, I guess, or as a way shower and, collaborator with other people that are waking and bringing this work through. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel it, lots of pressure and kind of at this time where I'm trying to make something happen and just sometimes we get stuck at these crossroads of like, you kind of have a vision, but you really don't know how to go forth with it. Or maybe you're just like super confused and,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you have these gifts and you can feel it. And it's like, well, how do I bring that out in the world? How do I build structures around that? Especially if there's structures that aren't necessarily already found in the dominant paradigm. How do you build something new? And how do we build something new when we don't even know what that is yet? Sometimes.
Yeah, it's tricky. And I keep trying to wrap my head around it and I don't know. But I guess that's why we need to, build a community and we do these type of things together to kind of have the collective dream.
Yes, exactly. It is. It's a weaving of what's possible.
So do you think you could dive in and give us like a short little rundown of how you do your soul path initiation or like,
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. So on the worksheet, you can see in the template, I start with Chiron. So the placement of Chiron. And if I click over here to my chart, just as an example, can you see it?
Not yet. I think you might have to just go down to the screen share and switch screens maybe.
Okay. I see. Okay. So, do you see my chart?
I do. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, and I'll just use myself as an example because it's always been a really great place for me to do meditations on any of these things that I'm working with by looking at my own life path. And I think by sharing our stories, we also help other people to really come back into their voice. That's been a big process with the book for me, is getting my voice back. And so it makes sense that I would just say, oh, well, how does this resonate with my own chart as a template to let other people start to explore theirs as well. So Chiron, as you can see, is in Taurus and conjunct the moon on my ascendant. So it's like a complex here of really connecting deeply to the dream world, the unconscious, the emotions, and really doing that through the Gaian impulse, in a really grounded way, through the body. And through aesthetics, Taurus is ruled by Venus, but in my understanding, the way I feel Taurus is it's very Gaian. So just the beauty of being in nature and being grounded in the body and really getting a lot of that information from the body for me, body wisdom, but also really understanding self-care and really understanding what happens when that's not a foundation. So I would say the initiatory path there has been when I have been physically traumatized, when I have lost connection to my self-care or to myself or my own emotions, things like that. So that then, and then we say, like, it sort of begs the question, well, if it's an initiatory path into our soul purpose, then that means that the initiatory path provides us with what we need to then be of service to others who are going through similar things. Yeah.
And can you just like briefly give us a rundown of who is Chiron, or what's the significance or importance of Chiron?
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. So in the book, I speak about Chiron, in his story and his message. And the myth or the archetype of Chiron, he is a centaur, but he's also a demigod. So he's not like other centaurs. He's a teacher and a medicine man and teacher of heroes. And his process is one of helping to initiate others into their soul purpose. And he's also about integration of opposites and holding paradox. So it feels very much like a path of connecting the spirit to the physical, and really in this time, and in my chart, we can see doing that here in matter, on the earth, not trying to do it somewhere else. There's nowhere else to go because it's all here right now. We have access to it. And so the embeddedness, the embodied aspect of it, that really feels true for me in my soul path. And also for you on yours. So I think Chiron, they call him the wounded healer, but his full name actually is the wounded healer wholeness weaver. We'll forget the second half.
Yeah, I haven't heard that second half.
Yeah, and so I think that's really important that people don't just focus on the fact that he was wounded. I think that people have to see that it's through the wound to the resurrection. And I say resurrection lightly in terms of, in the story, in order to be freed from the ongoing suffering, because he couldn't die, he was traded. So Prometheus was freed from the rock. And that then, we know Prometheus and his resonance to Uranus. So the provider of the gift of inspiration and fire for humanity. So so having that freedom, and then being resurrected into the sky as Sagittarius. So people, when they see the image of Sagittarius, they may not realize it, but that is Chiron. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
And any specific reason why you picked Chiron for the soul path initiation? It's because of like working with these old wounds and learning how to heal these wounds. So
exactly.
You can kind of step into that path of like self-healing.
Yes. Well, in that the self-healing is the other healing.
Right.
That's that holography. Right. Exactly. So as we're healing ourselves, we have the medicine that heals. Our particular medicine is also then a medicine for other people. In and of itself, it's the inoculation, and it's also the opportunity to help other people find their special medicine in their lives, you know.
And does the house matter where Chiron is, or are you just looking at what sign? I
think that's a whole nother layer, and I think that would be really fascinating. I don't work with the houses. Right. I studied with Rick, and also Jess is one of my main teachers too. But mostly I work with aspects.
Gotcha.
So the dynamics. And then the nodes, which is the south node, is the gifts and the karma that we brought into this life, or things that are left unfinished. And the true node, which you can see here in my chart, which is I have the Venus Mars true node in Virgo. So what that says to me then is that that's something I'm moving towards. So I'm in this life, part of the telos of this life is really an integration. Once again, we see that integration of opposites, right? The Mars and Venus, but also Virgoan. It's like, how do we have sacred partnership, not only within ourselves, but how do we carry that union of opposites of Mars and Venus out into the world? And in a way that's really service oriented and really, really honoring. And really understanding what that requires. I think Virgo's really good at really understanding details and really understanding how to make things hold containers, for example. Because they also have moon there, so that's thinking about when I think of my Chiron, I think of Chiron moon. I think of, working in Taurus, I think of like container work also.
Mm. I have a moon in Taurus also.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
We're both Leos with moon in Taurus.
I know, it's
That's
true. There
awesome.
you go. Yeah.
And the nodes are in relationship to the moon, correct? It's a
Yes,
south node
exactly.
of the moon, north node of the
The
moon.
lunar nodes,
Mhm.
exactly. The dragon's head and the dragon's tail.
Cool.
And so the true note is what you're moving towards and the karma that you are working towards in this life. And then the midheaven. The midheaven is like the most expressive self. If like the IC is the most internal self,
Mm.
and the MC is the most external self, or the self that we show the world. And
Mm.
so vocation, career work is definitely one reading of that, one way to express that. And as I was saying like earlier in our conversation, having that in Capricorn really speaks to me like about systems and about um, responsibility and structure. And in the ways that I resist sometimes the dominant paradigm, then what that says to me is that how can I work all my Uranian energy, like which I have on my, DC with Uranus and Scorpio, like how do I bring that sort of transformation into the systems and structures that exist,
Mm.
um, and build new structures. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So fascinating. So do you work with any other parts of the birth chart, or with the soul path initiation, you're just mostly looking at the lunar nodes, where Chiron is, and then where the midheaven is?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much we could really we could look at a lot and it's all basically the whole chart is
Hmm.
your soul path, in a way.
Right. Yeah.
But I just wanted to pick some things to be able to stay focused
Hmm.
and to really look at what are some things that we can kind of pinpoint as structures that were guiding the process of
Hmm.
soul purpose.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's not limited to that by any means. It's just some focal points, really.
Right. Right. Do you have my chart by any chance?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Do
Should
you
we
want to
take
see?
a quick look at that?
Sure. I didn't want to do it without permission, so
I don't know. I think it'd be
let me
fun
do
to
that.
just check
Yeah.
out really quickly.
Perfect. Some of it will, as you'll see, overlap with what I've already said. So it's interesting. Yeah, you have the midheaven and your moon is in Taurus. So some of the things that I was saying about mine with my ascendant and my Chiron is also true for you. So, but we'll start with your Chiron. We'll go in order because it also makes sense to start with Chiron. So you have your Chiron right here in 27 Gemini.
Mm.
So what comes up for you around, do you know much about Gemini?
Well, Gemini is kind of like the sisters, right? They kind of have two personalities, the twins.
Right, exactly. So it has a lot to do also with, there's a level of talking about integration within that one too, but from a more air quality.
Mm.
So sort of the mind, working with the mind in that way. So I think that's interesting because integrating that with your Taurus and your moon, then there's this sense of how do you work with this real air quality and with this real earth quality and bringing those two. So it's like you're bringing in the mind into matter,
Which is kind of interesting because I am very in my mind, and I don't know how. I like writing because it helps me kind of get some of that stuff out, but then I get really stuck because I'm just constantly in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's funny that I'm pursuing somatic psychology to get back into the body and explore the relationship of the mind and body. That's pretty interesting to see that connection.
Exactly. And then because it's also your midheaven, then it seems that there's a way that the work that you're doing in the world is also honoring of the earth and the body and the connection to nature, and the shamanic practices and breath work and things like that all really speak to sort of that moon in Taurus as well. Definitely.
Interesting. And yeah, I always keep going back to the houses too, because I think, what is that? That's Jupiter, my ninth house there.
Yes.
Yeah. I've always been told that, I'll have a career in like maybe like academia or some sort of institution, and teaching and traveling will be a big part. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's interesting because I didn't really know that my midheaven was there or what that really stood for. So it's interesting. All that stuff's right there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And the true node is in Aries. So there's a real push that soul purpose and karma is driving you in a
Mm,
way. You know, it's really the fire in your belly.
mm.
It's something that if you were doing something that was out of alignment, it'd be really hard for you to stay. Does that feel true?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever things don't line up for me or I feel a little off, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's like I run away. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
But at the other side of the coin, it's like, well, I don't know if it's running or if it's just knowing that's not working and that's just not what's feeding me anymore. So I just kind of like let it go. Um, I'm kind of in this process right now of kind of thinking about that of like, is it running away or because I think also with Saturn returning, it's
Hmm.
like kind of getting rid of things that like aren't serving you anymore as well. And I've been just kind of having this dialogue with myself and thinking about it is like, okay, sometimes I run away from things, but also I think it comes back to like, is it serving me? If
Right,
it doesn't,
exactly.
if it's not helping me kind of grow and evolve, then not to say that like I should get rid of everything that doesn't help me. That sounds kind of selfish, but just kind of thinking about the things that really bog you down, the things that
Right.
suck all the energy away from you. And it's like, do I really want to stick around and let that continue to happen?
Right. What are the structures that will actually serve the process and what you're moving towards?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so for me, when I think about what you said about running away, I feel like you're actually running toward
Right.
what is authentic,
Yeah.
and maybe you're running away from what isn't, and maybe that's a good thing to
Could
run away
be.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So definitely. Then wait, did we say so? Chiron, midheaven, and true node. I mean, I mean, if we were looking at your chart, I mean, obviously from an aspect perspective, we would start with the grand trine, and we would look at the sun, moon, um, and like the ascendant. Those are the top three that you'd start with. This not
Hmm.
for soul purpose, but just for me, like the way I would read, and then we would look at like some transits and things like that. So there's a lot going on.
Hmm.
For soul purpose, it's just nice to kind of draw those figures that maybe people aren't like focusing on as much in
Hmm.
regular and sort of basic natal readings. Like, so for me, like Chiron, true node, and midheaven are sometimes things people don't even get to in like a reading,
Right.
the
Yeah.
first time. And so I'm like, let's look at them, because they have important information to share with us.
Yeah, I've been looking at my chart for the past like year or so, and there's just so much information there. And sometimes it seems so overwhelming to even look at it. You're like, what's all this blue? What's
Yeah,
all this red? What do these numbers mean? Like, it just
exactly.
kind of makes your head spin. So it's kind of cool to like narrow your focus on maybe 3 points. Um,
This is a great resource, the handbook.
what is
Um,
that? What is it called?
the Horoscope Symbols by Robert Hand. I just
Okay,
like to call it
cool.
the handbook.
Awesome.
But I was just going to look up Gemini really quick too, also to see like what else is it saying to us, because what all of it means is like we're talking about the element, we're talking about the mode, we're talking about whether it's positive or negative, basically feminine or masculine, and what the ruler is.
Mm.
And all of those can really be helpful in understanding some of the nuances.
Hmm.
Um,
Gemini is an air element,
yeah,
correct?
exactly. And it's mutable,
Mm-hmm.
positive, and its ruler's Mercury. Like we said, it was talking about the mind in that way, um, speed and curiosity, and relationship and sociable. And I think it's interesting too, because your interest in working in the online environment, I think, speaks to that as well, because Mercury is not only communication and travel, but also computers, right? So it's like communication via the computer. So how do we go into these online environments and create meetings and groups and classes and stuff like that? So I think Chiron being an initiator into the world of ideas and the world of the computer and technology, and being able to transmit ideas over the computer, I feel like that really speaks to it as well. But I think it's also interesting too. It's like, and we don't have to talk about this now, but just as a question, as a prompt to think about, because Chiron has an initiatory energy, how would you say that the wounds of your Gemini, or the wounds of this sort of mutable air energy, has affected what for you is then your medicine? You know? So.
Well, when I think of like wounds and Mercury and wind, or like air, I just think about communication. That's a pretty, I guess, big wound.
Yeah.
And it's something that I constantly try to keep working on. So even doing something like this is kind of tough, but I think it's kind of helping me heal that wound of communication.
I would say doing coursework to be a therapist too.
Right. Yeah, that's
somatic therapist, but it's also, and that's the beautiful integration between your midheaven and your Chiron too that you're doing. Is really the fact that you're doing psychotherapy and you're doing it somatically. So you're doing, you're integrating the mind and body. And that I think you do in your other practices as well.
Right.
Wow.
Huh. That's really interesting. Thanks so much for looking over that chart.
Yeah, I know there's more. We could always do more, but just for, like you said, for Soul Path, it's nice to just have some focus.
Yeah. It kind of gives me a little bit of reassurance too, of like, okay, like I feel okay with what I'm doing right now, because it's like it resonates.
Exactly. That's what I would want really for people, is anybody that's saying, is what I'm doing feel like it's in alignment, or is there a way for me to hone in a little bit more on what my gifts are and how to bring them out to the world? That to me feels like that would be the greatest service that I could do, is to help people get in alignment with their path in any way.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And now, are you looking to take on some clients or work with people at this moment? Because I know you're also kind of juggling some projects and school yourself.
Yes, I am. I do have a monthly circle that's based on the book, and we go through the different themes that I present in the book and do experientials and processing and meditations with that. So I love having the in-person groups, but I am taking Becoming Sacred Space coaching clients, people that are interested in developing and unfolding in this work in a more personal way, or if they're not local, then I would be able to work with them online. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And so how do people find you? Do you have a website?
Yeah, thank you. That's
email address, or
Yep. You can find out more information about me, my bio, and my book on becoming-sacred-space.com.
Make sure you guys order it.
Thank you. Yay. And yeah, like all the contact information is on there, and please ask any questions. And even though astrology is only one of the modalities that I work with, I felt like this was just a nice way to sort of enter into the conversation. And really, I love to work with a lot of different archetypal systems. And my main work with energy work is sound healing and working with the chakras, aura, and space clearing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for, sharing your wisdom and your teachings with us today. And, I'm sure we'll have you back, and we're probably going to do some cool stuff together. So this is just kind of like a taste tester for everybody.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks for your great questions. And thanks for letting us look at your chart and mine.
Yeah. Thank you. It was an honor.
Okay.